broadcasting live out of a basement in Appleton, Wisconsin. You're tuned into Fox Cities Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. We're the show that gives you an opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Our call-in line is 920-358-0795. Core.
Kristin Lytie is a stand-up comedian hailing from Green Bay, Wisconsin. She cut her teeth in the Chicago comedy scene and even earned the distinction of being named a comic to see by the Chicago Tribune. Kristin has a comedy album coming out, which is going to get a special vinyl release, which is pretty rare, in my opinion, for this area. She'll also be performing at the GBUFO Fest at the Tarlton Theater in Green Bay this upcoming July. I'd like to welcome Kristin Lytie to Fox Cities Core. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is very cool.
Well, thanks for doing this. It's exciting that you've got a comedy album coming out on vinyl. That's again unique. Like, I remember growing up, Steve Martin had a comedy album and different comedy. Bill Cosby, kind of hate to bring that name up, but just has a bad kind of
like
feeling.
Bill Cosby.
but I'd see these comedy albums coming around, and it's again pretty rare, at least from what I've seen, that somebody in the area has put out an album on vinyl. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an exciting choice. I actually, if I was left to my own devices, I probably would have never even recorded an album. But I came into a little bit of money last year, and I was joking with a friend of mine, and I was like, should I have a midlife crisis? And he was like, no, you should record an album at my festival and put it out on vinyl. And I was like, oh. Okay. So I recorded it at Altercation Fest in Austin, Texas. And yeah, I got hooked up with some great record makers in Austin. And yeah, it should be ready to go all next month.
And it's called Disassociation Vacation, which I've got to ask you what that means.
I actually forgot to do the joke on the album, but it's more of a state of mind, really. Like sometimes when I'm very frustrated, I just disassociate, and it feels like a little vacation just for me.
Well, so the album is just one show, because sometimes
Yes.
they take different pieces from different shows and they'll make one full. So this was probably a highly stressful situation where you had to get it right the first time.
You know, there was that thought of like, it's one take, better get it right. But that festival and that venue, Kick Butt Coffee, and the crowd there is like just my favorite place to do comedy. So it kind of felt like it'll be okay. I did hang out for 5 minutes in the supply closet before going up. So there was a little time and space to mentally prepare. But then when I got on stage, you know, it just felt like being in a warm bath, and like these people are my people. So
when did you first realize that you wanted to do stand-up comedy? Because that's almost like public speaking, which most people are terrified of.
Yeah. So I started 11 years ago. And when I was a kid, you know, me and my grandpa would listen to Carlin records and Hick records. And, you know, comedy was always kind of this thing. I thought people were preordained, that they would just, you know, they were fully formed and they would be great comedians. But then I started going to comedy shows in Chicago when I lived there. I lived there from 2008 to 2018. And I also started seeing open mics. And some of the people at the open mics, I was like, oh, well, I can do that. And then, you know, my day job, I've been a union organizer for 15 years. And with that job, there's a lot of confrontation. You know, people have called the cops on me, screamed at me at picket lines. So comedy didn't feel particularly scary.
I mean, is that something that polarized, you know, having the political polarization, do you get people that walk out of your sets? I mean, do you bring up politics during your sets? I know you talk about being a union organizer.
Yeah. And, you know, I think I talk about it in a way that is highly relatable, because no matter what, everybody wants to be respected for their work and paid a living wage. So even though I am very leftist, I think people, I don't know, maybe it's something about my smile, but people give me a chance. Yeah. I have actually had, like, people who identify as Republicans or very right-leaning come up to me after and be like, you know, I don't agree with you on everything, but some ideas, yeah. So, you know, I think that's reflective of my work with unions, is trying to bring people together to build consensus and achieve something better. So I actually started comedy because I was like, no one calls me because they're having a good day. And it was getting a little depressing, you know? So like to have comedy as this outlet to like bring people together, make a room full of people laugh, it kind of made me like feel like I was fueled so I could go do my union work more.
How is the scene different in Chicago from up in Green Bay?
It's a lot smaller. You know, we don't have as many shows, as many mic opportunities to do new material. So sometimes I do feel like a little bit of a monster, like I run new jokes on my friends, like conversationally. And they'll get that look in their eye, like, I know what you're doing. But yeah, I'd say the Northeast Wisconsin scene, I've been home for 5 years now, and it's really grown. It's, you know, we have a lot of fun comics here. I run Don't Tell shows with Trevor Klumpner and John Egan, and those have been selling out. So I think the area is getting more excited about comedy, too, as an audience.
Do you find that people expect you to be funny all the time, even when you're not on the stage?
Yes. Normally, like in my work situation, when people find out I do comedy, they're like, oh, you? Really? Like, I could be funny. But yeah, I find people do expect you, we call it being on, you know, they expect you to be on. And I am just not that kind of person. You know, I can be funny on a Friday night from 7 to 9 when I've rehearsed it and practiced it. But mostly I'm just kind of a quiet nerd, you know. I like to stay home and read and hang out with my friends and go see bands. And usually when I'm with my friends, they're the ones that are like making more jokes than me. And I just like to be around them.
Well, stand-up comedy's been compared a lot to being in a band, but there are differences. One of them being when you're doing stand-up, once you do a bit, if somebody hears it again, it's like the punchline is sort of ruined. As far as stand-up comedy, is the pressure pretty intense as far as to keep writing? Because you're going to put this album out and probably still perform the material off it, doing stand-up. Is the pressure to continue writing, I mean, how easy is it for you to write material? Does it come naturally?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I have so many friends that sit down and write, and I've never had that process. Like it almost feels like a little transmission sent to my brain of like, that's funny. And then I'll make a note in my phone. But it just hits me in the moment. Maybe if I actually tried, I would be more disciplined about it. But I am excited because since January, I've written a new 15 minutes. And that made me feel really good because I was a little scared about, you know, like, okay, you're recording this. That means it's time to say goodbye to that material and move on. And of course, there's still bits that are like my favorite bits and things that I think are just so definitively me that I'll probably keep doing. But I don't know, it's kind of exciting to think about exploring who I am as a person now that I've recorded this album. I've said all that stuff. What do I want to say now? Because that material took about, I would say at least 5-6 years to really build.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is, yeah.
And then, I saw one where you did a bit about getting bangs. Obviously, that is, can't use that anymore.
Yeah.
When you're testing material, you're doing a lot of open mics. How are you kind of chopping out the material that you're working on?
Yeah, I try to do open mics. Like I'm on the road a lot for my work. So I was in Virginia last week. So I got to go to 2 open mics there, which was really fun. And I like that because I'm testing it around the country and it works. So that makes me feel really good that it's not, that was one of my concerns about moving back to Green Bay is like my comedy would get too regionally specific and wouldn't work in Atlanta or Los Angeles, where I've been to both those places this year, and the material pretty much works. So that felt really great. Like I'm tapping into something.
Did you have to do any editing on this album when you heard the final version? Did you cut bits out of it, or did you pretty much let it run its full length?
Yeah, I am very blessed in that I have a very good friend who is a music producer and sound editor, and that's Wally Skinner, and he took over and did everything, which, like, if it was just me, it'd be like, yep, it's as is. But there was one line where, like, I stuttered a little bit, and he just went in like a surgeon and snipped out the stutter, and it's perfect.
People can pre-order this. It's interesting how this is set up. So people can pre-order it in between. If April 15th and 25th. And if they pre-order it, they can get a discount on the vinyl, which you're only doing 200, and it's colored vinyl.
Yeah, it's going to be lime green, which is my favorite. Yeah, so we do the pre-orders in comedy so that you can build momentum and chart on iTunes, so that hopefully your day of, when it's released, you get number one on iTunes, and then you have a fun little credit, you know.
Being a vinyl release, 200, like I guess I think from like the music side of it, which normally you're getting 200, it's like, well, I hope I can sell all 200. When the sales start in 2 days, are you expecting to sell a lot on the front side, or are you expecting to sell a lot after the fact at gigs?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm probably going to give away half of them just to like friends and family because it feels so gauche to make them pay for it.
It's work. You had to work to get that done.
It is work, but I love them, so I don't know. But yeah, I hope I have a few left, to take on the road. I think that would be a really cool merch item to have. Yeah, I guess I'm basically looking at it as just kind of documenting a time in my life. And if I make a little money, hey, that'd be cool. I am really excited about the cover, though. That was drawn by Christy Rhodes, who, I don't know if you're familiar with like Microcosm and Brain Scan. A lot of zines from like the early 2000s. They're just an amazing artist and musician, and someone who, when I was coming up, I would always kind of like recognize their artwork on zines and music and know that it would be good and I would like it. So I reached out to them, and I was fully expecting not to get a response at all. And they got back to me and they're like, absolutely, I think it's really cool what you're doing. I would love to be a part of it. So I was like, oh, yay. Totally fangirled over them.
In the area, you mentioned John Egan, but how tight-knit is the Green Bay, Appleton area comedy scene? We've got some comedy clubs. I think there's one in De Pere. There's Skyline is a big one. Yeah,
Skyline is huge. Comedy City in De Pere mainly focuses on improv, but they do have a few sporadic stand-up events as well. I would say we all definitely know each other and chat here and there. And it's been really cool getting to know them all.
I think I saw you're friends with Christopher Olsen.
Yeah.
He's been on the show before.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Chris is great.
Yeah. So is it hard when you're a comedian and writing material to go out and watch other comedians and not like borrow some material or think, there's been a lot of, in the comedy field, from what I can see, there's been a lot of accusations of this person stole this bit, not locally, but nationally. Is it hard to write comedy and try to write where you're not touching on things that people have already said?
Sometimes that can really be a fine line because you have, we call it parallel thought when premises get very close to each other. But that can also be representative of it's just something people are feeling in the moment, or something that is very popular. But I think I've never really worried about it too much because I feel like I have a unique take on things. And, if a premise comes out that's very close to mine, I usually just feel flattered. Like, oh, we're thinking about the same thing.
You did a podcast recently. I can't remember the name. You probably do. But you talked for almost an hour about a show that I started watching because of you now.
I'm so happy to recruit you.
What is it? Your Flag Means Death?
Yeah, it's Our Flag Means Death, and that's Jackie Cation's podcast called The Dork Forest. Mm-hmm.
Well, you talked very highly of it, and I know that it was canceled after 2 seasons, so I went in knowing that, and we are, I believe, 2 episodes into it.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. It gets really good.
I mean, you probably wish you could take it out of your mind so you could watch it all again.
I do.
For the first time.
It's embarrassing how many times I've watched it in its entirety. But yeah, it's 2 episodes in. You haven't even met Blackbeard yet. So, I'm jealous.
He's coming, though, I think, because they mentioned Blackbeard.
Yeah.
So so thank you for turning me on to that show.
I'm so happy.
How many times have you played at the Skyline?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. Probably in the 20s, I'd say.
That's quite a few times.
Yeah. They bumped me up to feature, which is cool. And, they're bringing in a lot of great names. I've gotten to feature for Bobcat Goldthwait and John Caparulo. And I'm actually featuring there next month, May 8th, for Kristin Keys, who is like an amazing musical comedian.
What's your take on musical comedy?
I could never do it. I think singing is terrifying. Like, I know a lot of comedians love karaoke, and that just makes me like fully shut down, and I will find a way to leave the venue and sneak away. I have friends who are amazing musicians, like Madalano Martin in Bloomington, Indiana. He's great. I'm friends with Holly Trasty of Holly and the Nice Lions, who is like phenomenal guitar goddess. And, I love going to their shows, but I could never, no.
Well, Holly is interesting because Holly and the Nice Lions, of course, have so much force when they're playing, and Holly's like so quiet. Mm-hmm. So it's a cool contrast to see her before. Then all of a sudden she gets up there and just turns into a different person.
Oh yeah, we've been friends for I want to say like almost 25 years now, and seeing her evolve as a rock star has been so cool to watch. She's so talented. She's amazing.
So you've got a soft spot for horror movies as well. You've got your own podcast called Bloody Mary. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I took a little break with the album, and, work has just been a lot right now, a lot of travel for work and then travel for comedy and the album coming out. So I realized, just take a little break. No one will get mad.
How long have you been doing that for?
I want to say 7 years. I've taken breaks here and there throughout, and I always come back to it when I'm excited to talk about horror again. And I'm going to see Civil War tonight, so I have a feeling it'll come back eventually, very quickly.
Did you kind of see that? How did you feel when COVID hit and all of a sudden everybody was doing podcasts?
Oh, yeah. Originally when COVID hit, I had plugged a bunch of friends from around the country, and I was going to start doing a weekly Zoom stand-up show. And, I had Ashley Ray in LA and Zach Peterson in Omaha, Tyler Snodgrass, and he's in New York. And I'm like, we're going to do this. It's going to be cool. And then I just had this absolute 180 and was like, you know what? The world's a garbage fire. I don't want to do anything. And I called everyone. I was like, I don't want to do this show anymore. And they're like, oh, thank God. We were just doing it because you wanted to. So I took a break for a while. And, Zoom actually introduced me to reviving the podcast because I was just doing in person. So with Zoom, I could have friends from all over the country be on. So that really helped the podcast in a way. But, there was a period where I was just full on depressed and didn't want to do anything. And, we got through that. And, now we're on the other side of it.
Is it possible to make money with a podcast?
I've heard rumors. I don't. I pay my friend in New York to edit it because it's just, it's a labor of love. And I love talking about horror and including my friends and giving them maybe a little bump of publicity. But yeah, I don't make any money on that.
Have you ever thought about doing anything where you interview fellow comedians at gigs or anything like that?
Oh,
like you could set up like I'm giving you like, hey, like setting up something at gigs where you can do like the Bloody Mary podcast and talk horror.
Yeah, for festivals, I've done a few live ones. Like I was in Alaska a few years back, and then we've done a live one at Austin and one in Indiana. And it is fun. Like I'm always a little nervous to go in front of a crowd because, you can't live edit. But in Austin and Alaska, they both went really well. So that made me think like, oh, maybe this is something I should do more often. But my plate's pretty full as is. So, but yeah, that's a good idea. Do more.
Does most of your time get taken up with the union organizing part?
That comes in ebbs and flows. Like there will be some days where we're working 12-hour days. A really important campaign is happening or an issue is happening that people want to work on. And then like there are times of the year where, I work for the teachers union, so they don't want anything to do with me. They need some personal time. They want to relax. So there's like ups and downs.
you are doing something. I know I'm jumping all over the place.
No,
I apologize, but
I got my coffee. I'm good. I'm ready.
you're coordinating a comedy segment. And before I even get into that, I just want to say, again, we talked about it about 40 minutes ago about Tom Smith and what an asset he is to the Green Bay music scene, but also the entertainment scene in general. So
Absolutely.
Did he approach you to do something to comedy-wise at the GBUFO Fest, or did you suggest that to him? How did that come about?
Yeah, so last year I was touring with Eddie Pepitone and JT Habersat, and we were going to be in town the same time the festival was happening, but we just couldn't align it quite right. And then Tom was like, well, for next year, what if you just coordinate a comedy segment for the fest? And I was absolutely floored, because Tom is someone I don't think I would be who I am today without Tom running shows at the Concert Cafe. Punk rock totally opened my eyes to a whole world beyond, mainstream media. I think one of the first shows I ever went to was the Lunatics, and I saw these women that were just amazing and defiant and punk rock, and I was like, I want to be that. So I was just so honored that Tom asked me to be a part of that, because he's been such a huge influence in my life. So I'm really excited to bring comedians here and show the folks at the festival that comedy can be punk rock too. It's not like Larry the Cable Guy and that guy with the puppets, whatever his name is,
Dunham or something.
Yeah. But that comedy can have multiple genres as well. And so I've got Brandy Posey coming from LA, Zach Peterson coming from Omaha, Katie Bowman coming from Denver, a bunch of folks coming from Bloomington, Indiana. And they're all people who, they're counterculture weirdos too. So I'm excited to show them my home.
Are they all going to be staying at your house?
4 of them are. And then I was like, I got to cut it. I'm sorry.
Is this the first time playing in Wisconsin for a lot of them?
No, actually. I think most of them have already been here. So
that should be exciting. And you mentioned going and seeing the Lunatics, but are there any other local shows you remember from back in the day that really left a mark on you or stuck with you?
Yeah, I would definitely say the Red Ants, whenever they came. Oh my God, they were so good. And Zeke and the Super Suckers, New Bomb Turk shows were always amazing. I just remember being young and when I would fall, my body would just bounce. And it's amazing, because now at shows, I take that big step back, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm too old to do anything with the teeth or glasses, So
now you're standing back behind.
Yeah, I'm with the fellow olds in the back, I
feel that, your body, you realize you only have one, so.
Yeah, and I'm sober now, so I'm like, wow, we really stood on concrete floor for 5 hours, huh? Okay.
Well, you've worked that into your comedy as well, the fact that you don't drink anymore.
Yeah, I do talk about that quite a bit, yeah.
Is there anything you don't want to pull into your act from your real life? Is most of the stuff you're talking about based in reality?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that to make up stuff that's just not your style, so it's all a play on reality?
Yeah. I will admit, there are stories where I will embellish things a bit more, but I think, everything is true to life, because otherwise what's the point, I feel like my narrative is always about, just everyone being comfortable with who they are. So not doing that would be it'd feel weird. I'd feel like I was lying on stage,
Have you had any time period where you're heckled? And how do you deal with heckling?
I've never been fully heckled in aggressive, negative way, like, boo, I don't like you. Well, once, actually. But normally the venue is really good about just whisking them out. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, my gosh. Okay, last weekend in Des Moines, I was headlining Teehees there, and there was this table of drunk dudes, and they were so wasted. I couldn't even understand what they were saying, because normally if someone is talking to me, I face down cops on a picket line. I'm not afraid to talk to a drunk dude in an audience, But they were so wasted, I couldn't understand them. So it's just oh my God. And then luckily AJ, the club owner, just whisked them out right away. And it was so bright, I couldn't really see what was going on. But all of a sudden it was very quiet. And I was like, oh, thanks. They're gone. But I do have a lot of I'll have overly enthusiastic heckling. People will just be so excited about something I'm saying that they're like, bah, 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 bah. And I have a personal story about that I want to tell you right now. Or and I think that's actually harder because when someone comes at you and they're mean and aggressive, you know what to do. But if they're being friendly and supportive but distracting, that's a lot harder to navigate, I feel. Because you don't want to shut them down and you don't want to turn the crowd on them, but you do want them to shut up.
Well, when you're opening for somebody like Bobcat, which is pretty cool. I mean, you're probably like me, grew up with Police Academy and all that. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden you're on a show with Bobcat. Did you have a chance to talk with him at all?
Yeah, he was actually so lovely. We chatted quite a bit, and he was really enthusiastic to talk with about my work. He's someone who is, thoroughly believes in unions, and a lot of his films have that message of working class people standing together. And actually, he walked me to my car every night, which I thought was really nice. And yeah, he was amazing. We're social media friends. But yeah, he was someone I really enjoyed getting to watch every night, go up and tell his stories. And it was, sometimes I get to work with people that I'm as much of an audience member as everyone else because I'm so excited to see them.
When was the first time you figured out that a lot of the big comedians do the same exact set every night, and did it blow your mind?
Oh, yeah. It actually wasn't big comedians. It was I was such a fangirl when I first started doing comedy in Chicago that I would go to comedy shows every night of the week. And I noticed this one comedian would say oh, so the other day this happened. And I thought the first time I saw it, it was oh, wow, this just happened to them. Cut to 6 months later, they're telling the same joke. And I was like, wait a minute. It's not new and fresh and authentic. And then it was oh, yeah, of course, Kristin. It's scripted, written material.
When you're writing your stuff, is it, because I'm guessing it's similar with you now. You're probably out there, you're doing a routine. Is it hard when the laughs aren't where you want them to be?
Yeah, sometimes if people are really enthusiastic, they'll start laughing at the premise, which, doesn't feel bad, but it feels a little off. Part of my brain is it's not that part yet. And I have noticed, in Wisconsin, the humor is a bit darker than the rest of the Midwest. So, sometimes they'll laugh at things that I take to the rest of the country. And, San Diego in particular was oh, no, we don't want to hear about that. So, yeah, sometimes when I expect a laugh and you don't get it, that hurts a little bit, but you get over it.
Now, getting back to the album, again, if people want to pre-order the album, they can do that starting on the 15th.
Yes.
And where do they have to go to pre-order it?
Yeah, that'll be on Bandcamp, and I'll have a link on my website, and all my social media will have that link as well. It will be so annoying to follow me that day.
And so if they pre-order it, do they get an instant download of it?
They will on April 26th.
Okay, so you can pre-order it early, get the download April 26th, and then you'll get a option where you can buy a discounted vinyl. Do you know how much that discount will be at this point?
Yeah, so the digital will be $10, vinyl will be $25 with shipping. So if you buy your digital, you get your vinyl for $15.
And then you mentioned the cover. How do you feel? You were here for the conversation with Modern Haunting about AI. Mm-hmm. You mentioned George Carlin earlier. I love George Carlin as well. Did you see that thing that came out that was allegedly written by AI?
Oh.
And then it turns out it probably wasn't.
No.
So, it was actually pretty good. I watched it when I first thought it was all AI, and I'm like, wow, this is scary. Not only is it going to wreck the music world, but also comedy.
Yeah, I saw this great meme that was why are we having the robots create art? Why can't we have the robots do the jobs people don't want to do? I feel like AI is really infringing on artists' ability to make money in the day job creative work, like copywriting, editing, things of that nature. And it'll continue to do so until we push back. I know Late Night with the Devil got a lot of public shaming because they used AI art, and that could have been someone's job. So I think we just have to hold people accountable to not not use that, because human art is going to be better.
Well, I've had quite a few musicians on here that do use AI for like album and single covers, which I always thought of that as more of just like you. The cover is like the first thing people see when they grab your album. So you want it to be kind of personal. And I don't know, you want to put your best foot forward, I think.
I agree. And, give someone else an opportunity to shine too. Like if I make music or comedy, I probably have friends who draw, that they could have an opportunity to showcase and be part of the project. So that's where I'm coming from.
Is there any colleagues in the comedy world that you'd like to plug?
Oh, yeah. I mean, locally, we've got Trevor Klumpner, John Egan, Kate Hermson, Hayden Fredrickson. They're all very funny and running shows locally around Green Bay and Appleton. I love all of them. And, JT Habersat runs Altercation Fest down in Austin, Texas, which is always like, if you love punk rock weirdery, that's like the best comedy festival to ever go to.
Well, again, I want to thank you for doing this. Again, people can go to KristinLytie.com. They can go to Bandcamp, pre-order Disassociation Vacation, get the discount on the vinyl. It's pretty cool that you're putting that out on vinyl. I appreciate you coming and doing this today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be able to chat about it.
Any final words?
Please buy my pre-order.